No, it's a very bizarre feeling. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel triumphant.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's objectively good,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm happy about it, and I think it is the right thing to do. I don't think the time to be a sort of vicious, brutal army that's going to conduct total war and get the hostages back at any um, through might and power. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think the time to start doing that is 15 months after the war starts.
I
Like,
agree,
if
exactly.
you were going to do that, great. But like at this point, I'm happy. I'm personally happy they made the deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's wonderful seeing them come home. I hope the rest do. But it feels complicated and disappointing in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And
It does. It does
yeah,
because you don't want to see a deal. You want to see a victory. You don't want to see a release. You want to see a
right.
rescue. Like the
Hmm.
idea of acknowledging the word deal is the problem because it's not a deal. Alan Dershowitz said this is an extortion. That's what this is. And we're going to do it because we care about life and we value their lives and we're going to do it. But you're asking Israel to risk the safety of its future citizens for the current safety of its kidnapped citizens, for future kidnapped citizens. And I made a video about like by these three girls coming home, what danger does that pose to Palestinians? Nothing. For the 1,000 Palestinian prisoners / terrorists who committed violent acts coming home, it poses a great risk to Israelis. That's all you need to know. And the only silver lining is seeing those images of her coming out of the car, surrounded by people, Hamas and Palestinians alike, cheer, like a mob, seemingly
But,
bloodthirsty.
but
It shows you, okay, it shines a little bit of light as to the moral difference between Israel and its enemies, I think.
yeah,
And you're like,
one optimistic note on
hmm,
that. So I think a big part of this and why it has felt disappointing is images.
hmm,
The image of seeing all of a sudden Hamas found their uniforms.
hmm,
They put
yeah,
the uniforms on. They're holding their guns up.
hmm,
That hurts. That hurts to see, and it's kind of scary, and and feels like a defeat.
mm,
Seeing that the image of that I think is much more powerful than the reality of it
right,
geopolitically, but then even more concrete, the reality of that actual image. I saw like a drone footage of it. It was like 200 people
hmm,
around the Red Cross. It wasn't the sea of thousands
yeah.
of Hamas fighters or whatever terrorists coming out. So like they want us to see that image. They
Hmm.
want to project that power. And so I think it's working in some sense, but it's also on us to
Yeah.
remain hopeful and faithful.
I don't buy that narrative for a second that they won. They've been absolutely
Well, they
destroyed.
won something
In
because
that sense,
because
they
they're not
wait.
absolutely destroyed.
Right.
They're not,
Yes.
and that's
Yes.
a victory in a certain sense.
But I mean,
For a suicidal terrorist organization, that's a
yeah,
victory.
that's not the troubling part. What I think for me is like, it's not the deal that people are upset about, and or at least I'm upset about. It's the deal at the end of 15 months of a policy of the U.S. towards Israel, almost exclusively putting pressure on Israel to figure their way out of this and to be compromising, to accept a deal. And the way that the Biden administration interfaced with Israel throughout this whole thing, at the end of all that, Israel not being able to do what it needed to do to get these hostages home or not exclusively putting pressure on Hamas to return them unconditionally, you arrive at a deal, obviously, that's not optimal. So you can't, like, people screaming at Trump, he's betraying us. How could he? You can't retroactively go back, fight the war a different way, and end up in a different place. This is where we are. So it's like live to fight another day and figure it out.
Yeah.
Not defending it one way or the other, but I'm trying to make sense of the feeling. It's like, what other options do you have
Yeah.
right now, given how it's been
Yeah,
conducted till now?
I think where my mind goes is I think that there needs to be a generational change in leadership. I think kids who grew up with
Mm-hmm.
October 7th are not going to make these sorts of deals when they're the leaders. This is these are still people who grew up with Ben Gurion, who might
Mm-hmm.
remember the forming of the state, who fought in the 6 Day War, and and they get us into these kind of deals, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
make these kind of deals. I would hope that the next generation won't.
Mm-hmm.
They won't fight the wars the same way, and they won't make these kind of deals, and they won't tolerate this type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's down the road, but that's where my mind
It's just
goes.
also the sickening part is the way the world perceives it as like, I'm glad Israel finally was coming,
Yeah.
willing to come to the
So
table. I'm like, what is wrong with you
so I
people?
I finally listened to Cigar and Jetty
Mm-hmm.
on on this podcast he has with Marshall Kosloff, with which I mentioned before, and also the way they were talking about it, and the way like I heard Tim Dillon talking
Mm-hmm.
about the deal. They don't. I just kind of realized like they don't care about the hostages,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't care if a few Israelis die every few months in terrorist attacks. They simply don't care. They care about America,
Mm-hmm.
which really is sort of fine. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're allowed to feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. It doesn't make you a monster to
Mm.
care much more about America than the lives of a few Israelis every
But
few months.
why comment on it? Just because it's so relevant? People talk about it
You're
because it's
saying,
such a
well, why are they commenting? I don't
yeah.
know, because it's a good deal for America. We're
Mm.
in their minds, whatever
Oh.
they think. Like we don't have to see it on TikTok anymore. We don't have to see kids being killed in Gaza. That's good
Mm.
for me. We're
Mm-hmm.
not. I guess in their mind they think we're not sending as much money there or whatever. We're not wasting money on Israel. That's good.
It's also yeah.
And let them feel that way.
It's also easy to just assume, yeah, both sides definitely got problems here. Like, I'm not going to fully support one or
Yeah,
the other because if you don't know enough, the safest position is to take is I'm sure there's problems on both sides. So if they're working it out and there's momentum in a positive direction, whatever. You can't fault people for being not close to the issue the way we are or informed on it.
right.
So, like, that's fine. But it's more just like seeing the images. You can't, your gut come to the conclusion of, like, okay, this side screaming, celebrating, almost bloodthirsty to get a look at her. Like, which side is the civil side of civilization and which side is not? I mean, it seems easy to me, even if you don't know anything about this. So,
Did you see Elise Stamen's Lyle Culpepper goodie bag thing?
yeah, a little bit.
So I love all the stuff he's
Yeah,
been doing. I think it's
yeah.
been so
The Lyle
funny.
is great.
And then the pro Gaza, like the pro Hamas accounts I follow, they really are just pro Hamas anti-Semitic accounts at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, of course.
They were sharing his thing.
Like crapping on it.
No, not crapping on it, being like, see, we were giving them, we were nice to them. This guy gets it.
Oh, they thought it was
So
real.
yeah, so he did the sketch of like it's like this like pro Hamas kind of like Ivy League student who's like giving goodie bags to the
Mm-hmm.
to the hostages, being like, you didn't see Wicked yet. I know you didn't see it, but like here's a Wicked sweatshirt, and like here's photo, and like sort of like over the top what
Yes.
you would give in a goodie bag.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they realized he was satirizing it.
That's beautiful.
Well, so yeah, it was great. It was
Job
great.
well done. Job
Yeah.
well done, Lyle. Shout out. But anyway, so I'm worried for like the next round or whatever it is. It's like I'm worried for what's to come.
Right, that's true.
But we'll just keep our fingers crossed and pray for the best and pray for the return of everybody.